After former attorney Robert Powell was sentenced to 18 months in prison, U.S. Attorney Peter Smith said a few words. Smith said that Powell's cooperation with the government was very important in convicting others involved with the Luzerne County corruption scandal. Assistant U.S. Attorney Gordon Zubrod also spoke regarding the collaboration between Powell and former judges Mark Ciavarella and Michael Conahan.
We think that the sentence was appropriate today and that justice was done with regard to Mr. Powell, and that I want to underline the fact that Mr. Powell's cooperation was vital to the success of this investigation and the prosecutions that resulted from it. Mr. Powell agreed to cooperate and cooperated prior, that is before a final agreement was worked out between Powell and his attorney and the government. And that was very important in the process of cracking this shell, this around the cabal and the climate of corruption that seemed to pervade Luzerne County, particularly in regard to the operations of certain judges. And without Mr. Powell's vital cooperation, it might have been a much more difficult, much longer, if not impossible, to process. And for that, the government feels that it was entirely appropriate to take the position we took, to reach the plea agreement that we reached, and to make the recommendations with regard to sentence that we did. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
How valuable was Mr. Powell's testimony in the Ciavarella case particularly? Mr. Ciavarella called him a liar at his sentencing, and today Mr. Powell's attorney called him sort of the architect or the star witness of your case against Mr. Ciavarella.
Well, there are a lot of factors that come into play in determining the outcome of a trial and the jury's vote on specific counts. We don't quarrel with the jury's decision. A culture of corruption in Luzerne County, that culture of corruption creates a cloud that makes it difficult to determine which comes first. The businessman or lawyer who is corrupt and wishes to bribe or pay off a public official, or the public official that makes it clear that he or she is seeking improper payments, improper favors in return for their official action. The two things interact here. They interacted in Luzerne County. However, I will say that from the government's perspective, it's really important that the business community, and particularly the legal community, blow the whistle on this kind of activity whenever they see any sign of it taking place, and that in effect they tell corrupt public officials, would-be corrupt public officials, to go to hell when the opportunity presents itself, and report it immediately to the appropriate law enforcement agencies. Gordon, do you want to add to that at all?
I think Mr. Powell knew that if he didn't pay, he wasn't going to get any kids. So in that sense, he knew the kids were the pawns in this whole affair. On the other hand, there's no evidence that he had any idea that Judge Ciavarella was violating kids' rights. In fact, I don't think Judge Conahan knew that Judge Ciavarella was violating kids' rights.
A term that you're referring to is a paragraph in the plea agreement with Mr. Miracle, which is on the public record. It was not an order to Mr. Miracle. It was a statement in the plea agreement as to the intention of Mr. Powell to make a voluntary contribution of funds, which Mr. Miracle to make a voluntary contribution of funds, which would be then used for purposes to benefit juveniles and young people in Luzerne County. The details of that process are still being worked out and have not been finalized. There's been no disposition of the funds as far as the government knows. There's been no actual activities carried out with regard to the funds. That's being addressed now, that's being looked into now. It's a work in progress, and at the appropriate time it will be provided to the court and made public.
Has the money been paid into an escrow account though by Miracle?
Based on what's in the plea agreement, the money has been put into an escrow account by Mr. Miracle. But that's not a fund that's under the control of the government. That's an escrow account, I believe, under Mr. Powell's, under the control of Mr. Miracle's attorney.
But is Miracle obligated to pay that money ultimately?
It's not an obligation. It is a part of the plea agreement that Mr. Miracle has reached with the government. There's no legal obligation on him to do it.
So why did the government do it in the first place?
The government didn't do it. Mr. Miracle did it. But it's stated as a condition of the plea agreement.
If he weren't to follow through on that, would the plea agreement be nullified, or would he face sanctions?
I think that's kind of speculative at this point. I mean, it's assumed that parties are going to comply with the terms of the plea agreement. As to the exact details of that particular part of the plea agreement, that has yet to be worked out. But it will be public.
Do you know why it's taking so long? I mean, this was a long time ago, a year and a half.
Well, first of all, Mr. Miracle has not yet been sentenced, and no scheduling date has been set. No date has been set for the sentencing. There's a lot of pieces, a lot of facets to this overall investigation, and that's one of them.